welcome to the latest installation of the AmeriCorps' mini lesson video series that we've been putting together. This week, I'll be piggybacking off Heather's campfire building video to show you some campfire cooking and some cool and different ways that you can use a campfire to create some delicious food. So today we're going to be doing 3 meals. Our first will be a baked brie, which we'll use some wrapped tinfoil to cook with, which is a great campfire cooking technique. Next, we're going to do some skewers, which are great because they let kind of each member of the group build their own meal, decide what sounds good to them, and then you're just going to cook that right over an open flame. And lastly, if you've got someone strong and tough enough to carry a cast iron pan into the woods, we're going to show you how to bake with one. And so we're going to do an upside down berry cake with some delicious blueberries and raspberries. So come along for the journey and let's learn how to cook some delicious food. We have 2 different variations on a baked brie, one for the more adventurous eaters and one for the less adventurous. Both will start the same way. So when you're starting your baked brie, what you want to do is cut a circle on the top of the rind and remove that top layer. It will not be tasty. You want to leave the kind of outer edge though, because that'll act as a support when your cheese starts to melt. So for the more adventurous eaters in your group, we have recipe number 1, which calls for a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons, kind of to taste, of apricot preserve. Spoon that on and spread evenly. You then top that with some raw sliced almonds. And finally, you're going to cut up about half of a jalapeno into some individual sized bites and top with that. For the less adventurous eaters in your group, we have recipe number 2, which again, you'll start the same way before spooning on, again to taste, a tablespoon or 2 of honey and spreading evenly before topping that with blueberries. Now once you've done that with both wheels of brie, what you're going to do is you're going to take them individually, put them on a piece of tinfoil, wrap that piece of tinfoil around the brie tightly, then put that wrapped package on another piece of tinfoil and double wrap it. That'll make sure that you're keeping everything nice and contained once you get to your fire. The next dish we're going to talk about is our entree, or what we would serve as kind of a heartier meal, and those are going to be some skewers. So what we call for here is, again, kind of depending on the size of the group or the size of the activity, roughly 2 pounds of some kind of beef. Cube those up into roughly 1.5 inch cubes. Really all that matters is that they're similar size, not necessarily what the size is, so that they cook evenly. So you prep your beef like that. For some vegetables, kind of pick whatever's in season, whatever sounds good, whatever will hold up on a skewer. You don't want anything that's going to cook and get super mushy, because at that point it might fall off the skewer and fall into the fire, which is no bueno. Once you've chopped up your meat and chopped up your veggies, go ahead and throw those in separate plastic bags. And then what you're going to do is take 1 bottle of teriyaki marinade, and kind of depending on the size, or if you have a heavy vegetarian crew, so you have much more veggies and meat, just kind of eyeball, and you're going to split your teriyaki sauce between the 2 bags. Once you've done that, give the bags a good shake. Make sure that the veggies are all evenly coated in the teriyaki, and the same with the beef. And then go ahead and throw those in the fridge for at least an hour. That gives time to set up and soak up some of that flavor before eventually throwing it in the freezer for some travel happy meals. So you have 2 options for what you want to do with your skewers. One option is there are reusable metal skewers, which are great, but that's certainly one option. The second option is to use either wood or bamboo, which is nice because you can then toss it on the fire after. In terms of fire setup, what you're going to want to do is set up 2, if you can, obviously, the flatter the better, little rock towers, which are a great fun activity to set up. And what you want is to then build a layer of hot coals underneath it, about 6 inches below. And that'll provide a nice, even cooking surface to then put your skewers over. Our third and final meal today will be an interesting take on a cake. We're going to go ahead and call it an upside down berry cake. And the ingredients you'll need for that are 4 cups of fruit, whatever sounds delicious and tasty and in season to you, 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 cup of any kind of lemon, limey, carbonated beverage. Here we're using some sugar-free Sprite. And then lastly, you're going to want 8 ounces or about half a bag of vanilla cake mix. This is another great recipe because you can, once you have your berries set out, you can go ahead and toss them in the freezer and they can act as an additional ice pack for when you're trying to keep things fresh on your journey. And then the Sprite and cake mix can come kind of as are and then can be mixed on site. What you're going to want to do when you are getting ready to throw this bad boy on the fire is you're going to layer the bottom of your cast iron pan with the fruit that you brought. Here we're doing blueberries and raspberries. So you'll cover the bottom, and then what you do is spoon some of your batter over top, making sure that if there are any kind of divots in the fruit, you're filling those in with some cake batter. And then what you're going to do is top that cake batter with some small clumps of butter, so you get some even dispersion of that. Once you are ready to go ahead and throw that on the fire, the setup is really important. We want to kind of simulate or emulate the effect that an oven will have on our cake batter. So what you're going to do is you want to get a nice bed of hot coals going. This is great because it can be left over from the skewers. And then what you want to do is add a couple logs on top. Make sure those get nice and lit and are going. Because what we want to do is then remove those bigger logs from on top. Place our cast iron right on top of those coals. And then we want to take those lit and burning logs that we just took off and put those on top of the cast iron. That way we're getting heat from both the top, from the bottom, and we'll get a nice even bake on our cake.